Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 355 of The Team House. I'm Jack here with Dave, and our guest on tonight's show, I'm very excited to have here tonight, Thomas Rathsack. Thomas is the author of Jaeger, At War with the Elite, a book that I helped have translated and brought to the English language readers. So it's out there for you guys if you want to read his memoir, which is super, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's a great story, and I hope you guys will check it out. Thomas's background is that he served in the Danish Jaeger Corps, which is Danish special forces with deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. He also served with the Danish demining group before 9/11, even in Chechnya in Afghanistan. And then afterwards, I mean, he wrote his book. There was some controversy about it back home in Denmark. And he's moved on to writing some novels, some television projects, and some other things we'll get into here. So Thomas, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So the first question we always ask is our guest's origin story. Can you tell us a little bit about like how you grew up and, you know, what your initial interest was in the military as a young guy?
Yes. Well, it started actually because I was very, what do you call it, insecure young child. And I was searching for answers. And I remember one day when I was walking with my mother in the street just close to my house, and a new book was released, and it caught my attention. On the cover of the book was a guy with a cigarette in his mouth. He was dirty, and I could just look at that face. That must be something special. And it turned out that it was a Danish guy from my Special Forces unit, the Jaeger Corps, and he was just some few years before he attended the Ranger course, and his name was Carsten Mørk, and he became number one at this Ranger course. I think it was 1978, and my mother gave me that book, and that book sort of opened a window to a world that was for me extremely interesting and appealing. So it was not that it was, you know, the military. It was just a story, a narrative about, you know, a bunch of guys working together in the nature and using their physics, and that was extremely appealing to me. And I decided in a very young age that I wanted to be a part of that unit, because then I have all the answers in my confused head, all the questions in my confused head that they would have an answer then. So that was the beginning, and so yeah.
And so you grew up and you joined the military. What year was this?
I joined the military in 1985. I was 18 years old. I joined the National Guard, and I served there for 5 years in infantry. And then, as 23 years old, I took the selection course to the Jaeger Corps.
And you had a bit of a winding path too. Like was it selection or was it your training course got postponed because of was it the Gulf War?
No, actually, it was. I became Jaeger in 1990, and as far as I recall, it was in 91 and 92 the first Gulf War.
Okay, I might be thinking of something else that I read in your book about how like a course you were going to attend got delayed.
What I wrote about was that during the first Gulf War, and that's one of the reasons why I left the Jaeger Corps in the first place. Anyway, we didn't even consider preparing our gear. It was the Americans and the British who went to the Gulf War, but nobody in my unit even talked about getting prepared to the first Gulf War. And I just remember it was extremely demotivating for me, because I mean, I joined the army to get some missions, not just running around in my unit and the barracks and just train and train and train. So I was very disappointed in the beginning of the 90s. In the first period, I was in the Jaeger Corps.
Before we talk about, you had a break in service because of that, but before we get there, I mean, tell us a little bit about the selection and the training. And for our American audience, what is the Jaeger Corps?
The Jaeger Corps was established in 1961 as a LERP unit. And until mid-90s, it was a LERP unit. And then in the 90s, it was transformed to a Special Forces unit. My selection course, it lasted 16 weeks. It's divided in two parts. The first 8 weeks, you have to pass and be among, I don't know the word in English, but you have to get the highest evaluation in order to continue to the last 8 weeks. And it's, we started, I think it was 98. We started and we finished 8, and I was among these 8. And it's classic disciplines. It's a lot of marching. It's a lot of orienteering. It's a lot of swimming, especially in cold water, which I really hate. It's a lot of exercises. You have done it. Nothing to eat, nothing to sleep, no restitution. So it's just 16 weeks of pain and misery.
And Denmark's climate is quite harsh, isn't it?
Well, it's difficult for me to compare with the other unit, but I think it's quite strict. It's only these 10% of the students who fulfill the course. So I was very prepared because I was training throughout my teen years. I was extremely ambitious, so I was very well prepared for the selection. So I normally say that I was a better student than I became a Jaeger because I never really had strong difficulties at the selection course because I was so prepared. I mean, as before I joined the army, sometimes I was walking, 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers alone, and swimming during the winter in the local harbor and all this. So I was very serious about my preparation. So selection course, of course, it was tough, but for me, I was so prepared. So I was never in the extreme red zone. So yeah.
And after the selection course, what is the training for a Jaeger like?
You have 1 year, a sort of probation before you are putting into an operational team. So this year you are being taught the basic skills. It's medic, it's comms, all these things, and then you are getting ready, and you're getting your Jaeger status after 1 year, and first after that you are allowed into the teams. It's a very small unit compared, at least to American standards. We have always been struggling for selection because the Danish army is so small, so it's very difficult to get enough people to get enough people into the selection. So it's a very small unit. It's about 50 max 50 shooters. So it's a very small unit, and the organization in total is 300 people, and then the core, the teams is only about these 50 shooters.
And Denmark has Jaeger Corps, the Frogman Corps, and then Sirius Patrol is also considered a special ops unit, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and the Sirius Patrol in Greenland, as you mentioned, is even smaller. It's, I wouldn't say it's a joke because that's not very polite, but it's so small. I mean, they have 4 sled patrols patrolling an area of the size of Spain. It's the world's biggest national park. The Sirius Patrol is patrolling on the east side of Greenland. But now, because there is this focus on Greenland, quite a lot of resources are being deployed to Greenland now.
And I would recommend for our viewers, we interviewed your buddy, Casper Domso, on a previous episode of this show. If guys want to go back, Casper was a Sirius Patrol member, super unique mission. I hope you guys will take a look at that. So Thomas, You had you were a special forces soldier. You wanted to test yourself and felt like you weren't getting that combat experience that you were looking for at that time in the 1990s. And so you had a break in service. What did you go and do outside of the military at that time?
Well, I finished in '94, and I really I didn't know what to do at all, because all my life it was all about being a Jaeger. So it was a very frustrating situation, not to have any goals. But what I did was I went to South America for 2 years, lived in Chile, and worked as a photographer for various magazines. I did that for almost 3 years actually, and then I went back home to Denmark and I worked as a computer salesman for 3 years, and that was okay, but it was very boring. And then I by coincidence I was offered an EUD course. Some old guys from the Jaeger Corps, they have made this cooperation with the army and some humanitarian demining organizations. And they hired or recruited old former ex-Jaegers and gave them this EUD course, which lasted about 4 months. And I did that course. It was around 1999. And after that, I had my first, well, you can call it mission. That was to Chechnya, or rather it was the republic just west of Chechnya. Because during the 90s, there was some civil wars in Chechnya. The Russians tried to control these regions. So there was a lot of refugees in the neighboring province region called Ingushetia. Yeah. So I traveled between Chechnya and Ingushetia to educate the refugees in the refugee camps. So when the war was over, they could return to their villages and be aware of how it is to live in an area infected by mines. How do you choose the path? Where can you go? Where is it safe? Where is it not safe? So I did that for 1 year, and then I continued in Afghanistan as a program manager and cleared some huge Russian minefields just around Kabul, the capital in Afghanistan. And I did that we are now in 2001 and 2000, and I did that for a little over a year.
What was it like interacting with the Taliban at that time as a Danish deminer?
Yeah, I mean, they're just completely assholes. But we have to deal with them because we came with our own money, but we still had to get their permission to clear mines in their country for our money after their wars. And still, we were treated like shit. I refused to wear a beard, which was mandatory for all men at that time. But I refused, and I was almost kicked out of Afghanistan because I refused to have this stupid beard. And we have to deal with them. We have to apply for permissions in order to clear the mines. So I had almost on a daily basis meetings with Talibans in the ministries in Kabul, where I have to go there and ask for permission to clear mines. So it was surreal to be in Afghanistan in this stage. Terrible place.
Hey guys, our show is sponsored by GhostBed. Check them out, please. They make awesome mattresses, awesome pillows, awesome bedding. GhostBed provides high quality and super comfortable award-winning mattresses crafted in the US and Canada. Did you know that 60% of US adults report being too hot when they're trying to sleep? That's me. I'm a sweaty little baby. That's why we designed all of our products with cooling features so you stay comfortable and asleep all night long. Pair any of our mattresses with GhostBed's award-winning adjustable base and get the ultimate sleep experience. GhostBed rules the family-owned business, 60,000 plus 5-star reviews. They have sleep experts on staff with 20 plus years of experience. So if you have any questions, you can hit them up and ask them, maybe what kind of mattresses work for you. 20 plus year warranty. That's 2 times the industry standard. Free shipping and returns on mattresses. Most of the products ship out within 24 hours. They have in-house customer support and sleep experts chilling in Plantation, Florida. It rules. It's the best. They give you 101 nights risk-free to make sure that these beds are right for you. If you don't like it after 101 nights, you can send it back, full refund. When you purchase a GhostBed mattress, your comfort guaranteed. I'm reading it right now, and it's capital letters, guaranteed. Okay? They do the right thing, and they're a great company. If you're not sure which GhostBed's right for you, like I said before, you could take their mattress quiz online, or you can give a call to one of their sleep experts, and they'll help you with exactly what you possibly could need, what works for you and what doesn't. And the best news about this is, Team House listeners and viewers, you get an extra 10% off site-wide for a limited time. You just go to ghostbed.com/house and use the code HOUSE at checkout. One more time, that's ghostbed.com/house with the code HOUSE, HOUSE, at checkout for an extra 10% off site-wide. I want to thank GhostBed for their continued support. I want to thank all the fans that listen and watch for their continued support. Without you guys, we are nothing. So thank you for supporting the show, and thank you for supporting the companies that help support the show. ghostbed.com/house for 10% off. Made in the US, made in Canada. Shout out to our brothers in Canada. They rock. Check them out. I love GhostBed. Thanks, guys.
Were there any close calls? I remember there's also a funny story about the street lamp that fell down.
Yeah, that's fine. I forgot that actually. Yes, I with my Swedish buddy, we were called out to the outskirts of Kabul, and huge amount of people were gathered around this suspicious item on the ground. My Swedish buddy and I, we made this hook line, put a hook in the edge of this item, because we believed it was explosive device, and from a distance we pulled this device and then approached it, and we discovered it was just the lamp from above, from the lamppost, which was just fallen down and then covered in dirt, and it looked like a mine or an explosive device. So, yeah.
And then, were you in Afghanistan when 9/11 happened?
Yes, I was. My boss from Denmark. He came, and we were sitting on the in the garden and drinking gin and tonic. We smuggled some booze in that was forbidden, of course, and there was a curfew after 8 o'clock in the evening. It was not allowed to leave our premises. So we were sitting in the garden, and we didn't have any radio, we didn't have any TV, because that was also forbidden. But the satellite phone rang in the basement, and I went downstairs and answered. It was from the HQ in Copenhagen, and a quite nervous voice said, "Have you heard about what happened in the States?" And I didn't know. I don't have a clue, because we don't have any access to TV or radio. And then he explained about the 9/11 attacks on Twin Tower and Pentagon as well. And soon we just realized that all the fingers were pointing at Afghanistan and Al Qaeda, and it didn't make any sense to stay in Afghanistan. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, we evacuated. Me, my Swedish buddy, and my Danish boss, and my dog. By the way, I found the dog some months earlier, and we drove this trip through the Khyber Pass in Afghanistan to Islamabad in Pakistan. It's 12 hours ride, and then we were standing by there for the coming weeks, and via CNN, I got updated on what was happening in Afghanistan, and what the Americans were planning to do, and all this, Article 5 NATO and all this.
That's a hair-raising experience, I imagine, to be in Kabul when that happens, and all of a sudden all of the news is about America wants to bomb this place.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, that was why it didn't make sense to stay there, because we knew that the Americans quite promptly would react, which you also did. But then in Afghanistan, or in Pakistan, my old Jaeger Corps spirit woke up, and I called the Jaeger Corps and told them about my stay in Afghanistan. And at that time, there was no Danish people in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Very few foreigners, some expats, yes, but very, very few deminers. So I told them, well, I've been here for 10 years, 10 months, and I have some experience with the country. I know about the culture, the geography, and I have a database of all the minefields in Afghanistan. Can you use me to some purpose? I asked them, and became quiet, and they said, of course we can. So I quit my job and took the first flight back home to Denmark, briefed the Jaeger Corps about all my experiences from Afghanistan, went to the American embassy in Copenhagen, by the way. They have heard about me as well, and I went there to give them all the information I had, pictures and the database and all this. And then a few weeks later, actually, I went back with the Jaeger Corps to Afghanistan.
Wow. So that's, I mean, really quick that you went from being a civilian to back in special forces, and you were 34 at this time?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I had to make some physical tests, and I had to be updated on all the new equipment because, as I mentioned before, the Jaeger Corps has been transformed from a LERP unit to special forces unit during the 90s. So I had to learn fast about the new procedures, about new weapon systems, comms. Everything was new. So I really had to focus in the next weeks before I could get into a team in Afghanistan.
And when you got to Afghanistan, I mean, where did your team get sent, and what was sort of like the mission that you guys anticipated at that time?
We were part of a task force K-Bar, which was based in Kandahar. And we are some of the first setting up the camp with the Americans and some other and some other units from Task Force K-Bar. I think it was some Navy SEALs. I think it was German KSK, Norwegian Special Forces, New Zealand, Australia, Canadians were in this Task Force K-Bar. And we were only 100 frogmen and Jaegers in our task force, which was a part of Task Force K-Bar, and was, as I mentioned, located in Kandahar, at the old Taliban Al-Qaeda base, actually. I don't know whether you have heard about Tarnak Farms.
Yeah.
Tarnak Farms, yeah. It was this, what do you call it, compound. And it was probably there where they prepared some of the attacks for 9/11, as far as I understand it.
And it's pretty littered with mines itself, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes. They had some daisy chains in Tarnak Farms, and I think there was some Americans who were killed because of these mines and these booby traps that they have left the place with.
So one of the things, that your unit was very good at, you mentioned how they started off as a LERP unit and evolved into a SF unit. But what Jaeger really seems to bring to the table is like a really strong reconnaissance background. And I was wondering if you could tell us about one of these missions that you went on in Afghanistan, where your team was flown in the 160th aircraft, and you guys occupied that OP for a couple weeks, right?
We're supposed to be there for 10 days. And we were, the infill was a nightmare, by the way. It was almost a completely, steep cliff. And it was, of course, during the night, and only monogoggles. And it was my equipment. At that time, I weighed 84 kilos, and my equipment weighed 82 kilos. Wow. So I had to carry my own weight up these damn cliffs. And our LOP was on the cliff, actually, and the distance to the village we had to observe on was almost, I think, 3 kilometers. And the mission was to verify whether the village was, to some extent, cooperating with Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Of course, as you know, they were hiding in Pakistan and doing their prepping, and then during the night they were sneaking over the border into Afghanistan and conducting their missions against the coalition. So we had to observe against the village in order to verify whether it was hostile or friendly.
So Thomas, just to interrupt for a second, I was trying to do some math in my head and I'm not very good at it, but so I looked it up. 84 kilograms for our American listeners. That's 185 pounds of equipment that you were lugging up the side of this mountain. And once you got up there, you guys had to establish your observation post, right?
Yeah. It was very narrow, very small. It was just a little, what do you call it? It goes down and then a little bit.
Like a ledge.
Yeah, yes. And we have our observation point just in front of our place, our loop. And and it was not a good place to be, because we didn't have any exit.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were compromised, we had a problem, and we were compromised after 6 days.
What happened?
In the morning, well, I was on the OP, and I could just sense that there was something wrong, and I turned my head, and I could see two guys dressed in black, long black beards with Kalashnikovs, 5-6 meters over the team. And it happened very quickly. They saw us, we saw them, and within 1-2 seconds, they were just gone. And that was 9 o'clock in the morning. And that was a problem, because we couldn't just pack our gear and find another place, because, I mean, daytime suicide. So we have to stay there. And we packed all essential equipment in our Bergens, and a guy called Peter and I, we crawled after these two men up the cliff, but we've been lying still almost for six days. So it was like my body was, being put down in cement. I was so heavy I couldn't move, and he couldn't move either. And we just came up on the top of the cliff, after half an hour. And these two guys, they were long gone, but we could see that they had run down to a little valley, a little village on the backside of our this cliff we were laying on. And they were just communicating with all the other in the village, all the other men, and they were talking in some radios and made some signals with the flags. And we just knew that it was a matter of time, because before they would engage us. So that was a shitty situation.
And the patrol leader, right, is calling up higher and like asking for air support and QRF, and they're kind of like, "Yeah, sorry, can't help you."
Yeah, we asked for some show of force, and were told from the AWACS that probably a French Mirage could do a low pass later in order to make some show of force. But we never saw any French Mirage at all. I don't know, just drinking red wine or whatever. We never saw some show of force. Of course, we had a QRF, an American platoon-sized QRF in Bagram, but they were labeled to all the teams in this along the border. So unless it was really critical, we couldn't just ask for a QRF, because our situation wasn't critical.
Right.
Of course, we compromised, but we couldn't just call for the QRF unless it really was necessary. And it was 2 hours flight from Bagram. So even if we had the QRF, it will still take 2 hours for the QRF to come to our location.
And how did you guys end up finally extracting out of that area?
Well, fortunately, the enemy, the Taliban, I assume they were Talibans, they just get their reinforcement by late afternoon, around 7 o'clock, or around 5 o'clock rather. It was getting sort of dark, and I could see in the village that their reinforcement, consisting of 30, 40 warriors probably, they came almost running down to the village. So they came late, and had they come 2 hours later, they would have time to engage us, and the situation could have been completely different. But they came late, and that was our luck. So we could just climb down the cliff, go down in the opposite valley on the south side, and we had this Chinook from 160 to pick us up just after getting dark. So it was very close before the landing zone could get hot, and we couldn't be picked up. But they managed to get down, and we flew back to the base. So,
any other notable operations from that deployment that we should talk about?
Well, but it was almost only recce missions. So it's. I mean that was the most can you call sort of dramatic. I was a lot of on some other recce missions, but we weren't compromised there. And the biggest lesson learned, by the way, with this mission was that we were too few in the team and too heavy. So next time we're 8 in the team or 10 in the team, and we have a lighter load, and maybe only 50 kilos. That meant that our radius was further, and we could find a better place to have the OP, and that was some lesson learned.
What do you think? Having done successful recce missions in Afghanistan, because we talk a lot and people talk a lot about how Afghanistan was such a hard place to do recces because the villagers knew everything, and you had your goat herds like wandering everywhere, and it was Red Wings where we see a SEAL team get compromised. What was it that made your recce mission successful where you avoided compromise?
We're extremely careful about choosing our OP. Probably know this software, Falcon View. At that time, we used Falcon View, and it was extremely efficient. And as I said before, we were lighter. We made this huge mistake being too heavy on the first missions. And the next time, as I mentioned, we were much better prepared due to Falcon View and preparation phase in general. And also, we just became better, more experienced. You have to bear in mind that the Jaeger Corps was a very inexperienced unit until the end of the 90s. We have been on Balkan, yes, but until that point, the Jaeger Corps wasn't deployed.
Yeah.
So we learned fast during the first months in Afghanistan in 02. We learned fast because we made some mistakes, but we really learned from these mistakes. And at the end of our mission, no teams were compromised because we have learned, and we're just being good at this recce mission type of recce missions.
And so after Afghanistan, if I'm correct, the next trip was doing security for the ambassador in Iraq.
Yes, I was 1 year almost in Iraq, 4 months in the south under the British brigade, where we did some recce missions, but mostly the 8 months was in Baghdad for the Danish ambassador. That's correct.
What was it like, operationally different for you doing recce in Iraq versus Afghanistan?
It was completely different terrain in Iraq. In the southern part of Iraq, it's completely flat, and it's even warmer than Afghanistan. So it's extremely difficult to hide in the southern Iraq. And these recce missions we did was in some sort of what's it called, swamp areas with a lot of channels cutting in the terrain, and we had to build sort of our OPs to find some palm trees and just build a sort of wall with these we cut these palm trees up, and then we made a sort of OP there. And sometimes we had the local farmer, they passed us 10, 15 meters from our OP. So it's very difficult to hide in the southern part of Iraq.
And then what was it like trying to run security for the ambassador and keeping him safe during this in the middle of a war zone?
Yeah. Baghdad was a very unpleasant place to be because obviously, we were located in green zone, a few hundred meters from the American embassy. And we had the ambassador, and we had 3 Toyota Land Cruisers armored. And we were 10 Jaegers just to take care of 1 VIP. And Baghdad was a war zone at that time. It was an extremely unpleasant place to be because it was so unpredictable. Either you had IEDs, you had roadside bombs, you have suicide bombers. A dog lying on the street or in the side of the street was just, filled with explosives. And when the column was passing this dead dog, it was detonated. Family fathers with their wife in the passenger seat and their kids on the back seat blew themselves up, passing some coalition convoys. In other words, it's completely unpredictable, and you can't see the enemy when this is their modus. And it was it was a nasty place to be.
But you also you tend to make friends with the animals wherever you go. Did you adopt another couple dogs on that trip?
Well, actually, the Danish ambassador he saw a dog standing and was tied to a lamppost, and he ordered the column to stop, and he ordered us to take the dog back home to the embassy. And she became a sort of embassy dog. But I found a home for her in Denmark, and she was called Maggie, and she had a long, beautiful life in Denmark. Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
I really like dogs.
And what was the another story I remember from your book? What was the story about sweeping the embassy every time? Was it the ambassador every time he'd get frustrated?
No, I don't recall that.
Was it you? There's something about like sweeping the embassy grounds or something like that when things didn't go right or didn't go according to plan.
Okay, I can't remember that.
Okay, like sweeping with a broom. I mean, like sweeping the dirt.
Okay, yeah, okay. No, I think he was extremely nice, pleasant VIP, the Danish ambassador, and I don't recall any any punishment in terms of cleaning or sweeping.
If I recall right from the book, you said he got interviewed by some Danish journalist, and he said some things off the record.
Okay, wow, I just forgot all about that. Yeah, it was a very left-wing Danish journalist who came and made this interview, and he made the angle so far from the point and the actual interview. Yeah. So when it was broadcasted on Danish television, it was a completely other angle. So that's completely correct. My ambassador, he was so angry, so frustrated that he swept the entrance for 2 hours. That's correct. Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah.
And then I think was it the next trip overseas was interesting. Back to Afghanistan, working undercover.
Yes, for 6 months. We had this undercover operation. It was with the Danish intelligence service, our actually sounds quite boring. Anyway, we have to, in some villages in Afghanistan, we have to escort this field officer from the intelligence services from out to his meetings in order for him to interrogate his sources in the local environment. So that could be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we couldn't just drive around in normal military vehicles. So we bought some old cars and we made them look like they were like all the other cars, but actually they were quite well maintained. And then we tried our best to blend in to look like Afghans. Obviously, we couldn't drive during the day because it was too risky, and we would also be exposed. So that's was another reason why we did during the night. So we painted our faces, and we had beards and local clothes, and then just a lot of weapons in the car, and completely on our own. We didn't have any backup. If we were compromised there, we would have a very, very, very big problem, because we couldn't call QRF or anything. We were completely on our own. So that was the risky part of the operation. But I mean, no big drama. We were almost compromised one time, but that's all. So it's just a matter of being extremely low profile. That was the most important issue with that operation. But completely another mindset, by the way, to do this sort of operation. I mean, normally we don't do this. It was to do this very quiet, low-key, low-profile operation was a completely another mindset for me, I remember.
And it's also like part of the, because the Danish military is small and Danish special operations is even smaller, you guys have to like cover all of these different missions.
That's right. We don't have resources just, to have one squadron taking care of unconventional warfare and another direct action. We have to the best of our abilities to do it all. So that's, of course, time consuming and tricky. But that's correct.
So on that note, let's talk about a couple things back home, because you guys also have domestic missions and, of course, training missions that you do back home too. There was one where you guys did security for I think it was an economic forum of some sort back in Denmark, and trained up and prepared extensively for that.
Yeah, that's correct. It was an EU meeting, and Copenhagen was hosting this meeting, and all military units almost, and all police units were involved in this project, or this meeting. And we had the responsibility for, I think, 4 hotels in order to make evacuation plans for the guests attending the meetings. That means we had to prepare on the roof, on the hotels, for helicopter extraction or rappelling down the sides, and fire escape plans and so forth. Quite boring, actually. But yeah.
Well, I mean, you also prepared base jumping, which I wouldn't consider boring.
No, but that, I mean, we considered the option, but I mean, 150 meters doing base jump, you really have, you've been free falling. Then it's not on the top of your list doing a base jump from
Definitely
150 meters.
One of, I don't know if it was from the same period of time, but maybe my favorite picture out of your book is the dude jumping out of the helicopter and tackling the guy on the jet ski.
Oh, yeah. Yes. It was just a demo. I think it was the Jaeger Corps. Was it 40 years birthday? I think so. And it was a demo in the harbor. So just show, yeah. It was a nice
awesome
picture. Very nice. Yeah.
And then tell us about Nighthawk.
Yeah, Nighthawk is an annual exercise with various foreign units from Scandinavia, the Swedes, the Norwegians, the British, some American units has been there as well, Special Forces. Delta was in the 90s and the beginning of the 10s. What do you call it in American? In
the 2010s. Yeah. You mentioned some Jaeger Corps guys like jumping into Hawaii with Delta at one point on training. Like, that sounds like a good gig.
Yeah, I know a former sergeant major in the Jaeger Corps. He got personal with some of the people from Delta, and I think this connection is still between these two units. The Jaeger Corps don't talk about it, obviously, and it's it's of course very useful for the Jaeger Corps to have these to have access,
Sure.
and relations to and connections in this unit, because they have training facilities that we only can dream of. And that was, for example, this exercise on Hawaii where they jumped in and to make an exercise there. Yeah, that could be nice.
That's cool. And so Nighthawk, I mean, it's like very like realistic full mission profile training that you guys do, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of assets, at least compared to Danish standards. But a lot of aircraft and a lot of helicopters, and it's just preparing during the day, and then the missions during the night, and then debriefing, and then you just go over and over again for 10 days. It's a very good exercise, especially because we have to cooperate with all the other units, and that's extremely useful.
And it reminds me that, you talk about doing a free fall jump into Nighthawk, or at least one training iterations. Do you want to tell the story about your Halo jump that got a little iffy?
Yeah, we were jumping for 14,000 feet. It was a dark night in November, cold, and we exited the C-130 over the ocean, and I pulled my chute in around 10,000 feet, and set the course directly east towards the beach. And this landing zone was an unknown landing zone. And I came over the shore, and I had my course, and then I started to make my final to the landing zone. But I discovered that I was backing. The weather forecast had been wrong, and the wind appeared to be much stronger than the weather forecast said. So that was obviously a problem for me to back in my chute. So I had a problem, and to make this situation a little bit more serious, suddenly I heard this sort of whisper. I never forget that sound. I have this, and I pull my own the one handle so I can see over my shoulder, and I see these 3 or 4 big windmills, maybe 300-400 meters behind me.
Oh,
and
like ocean the turbines for electric.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I was backing towards these windmills. So that was obviously a very shitty situation. So the only thing I could do was just to turn 180 and then fly with full power between these big windmills. And then I landed, way too fast, and really, yeah. But I never forget these damn windmills. Yeah.
And another training mission in your book that's interesting is where you guys have to tackle a cruise liner.
Yeah, that was a training exercise as a
yeah.
part of the Danish national counterterrorism setup. And we 2-3 times a year we train with the Danish counterterrorism police, because the Jaeger Corps also is a part of this national setup. And it's just we bought the ship either on fast rowing or rappelling, mostly fast rowing, or boarding from a rip boat and with these small ladders. And then we have this hostage situation on the ship, which, by the way, is quite complex because it's quite difficult to get the overview when you have to navigate inside a big ship. It's difficult with the comms because they can't always reach through the walls and all this. So it can very fast get very complex. So it was, but very useful and exciting exercises.
That's super cool. And then at this point, back to Iraq. Can you tell us the story about, you're back with the Jaegers in Iraq, the In Deep Shit story, the chapter from your book?
Yeah. There was a headquarter from one of the local militias, And one of the big problems in the area was that they were firing these rockets, improvised rockets, into the Danish camp and the British camp. So one of our mission was to identify where these weapon caches were, where they hid all the rockets and the ammunition in general. So we got this intel on one militia headquarter in the outskirts of Basra.
It's Jay Shalmati, right?
Yeah. And for some reason, they wanted us to go in and look at it. Seemed quite clumsy to me, but anyway, that was a mission. So we were dropped off by the helicopter and then had 2-3 kilometers until this forest area consisting of palm trees and a channel cutting through this palm forest. What do you call it? Around 4 kilometers. And on the satellite photos, it was just cut through maybe 20 or 18, I think it was, of these small channels. And on the satellite photos, on the aerial photos, it seemed quite innocent. It didn't seem that tricky to get over these 18 or 19 channels. But after getting to the first one, we realized that it was, first of all, it was guarded by barbed wire. So we had to crawl in the barbed wire and then down these channels, which was much broader than we expected. And we discovered after 2-3 channels that it smelled like terrible smell. And we discovered it was the village's sewage system that we had to, pass every time we went down in these 18-20 channels into this actual shit from the village. So it was a very long way with these 18-20 channels before we could get to the target. And unfortunately, we had to get another. We went another way out, and not the same way back to the pickup. But it was that was not pleasant though.
And I take it you burned those uniforms when you got back?
Yeah, we did, yeah. We got some new ones. Yeah.
And then you also had an opportunity to, was there destruction of a rocket cache? There's like some rockets you guys blew up?
So long time ago, I can't really remember.
It's
Jack.
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And then there's another mission where you guys were the QRF for the conventional Danish forces, right?
Yeah. Actually, we were preparing for another mission, and our platoon commander, he came running in the tent and said, we have to be QRF right now. So we just got our weapons and boarded the helicopter and were briefed on the way to the area. And it turned out that a Danish platoon was not able to get out of this village. And from our position, we tried to caught the attention of the Iraqi militia who had caught this platoon, and the rest of the battalion was on the way, and they came and made this one platoon get out, but one Danish soldier was killed in this firefight, and we didn't get any real action besides from just being standing by in the area in the perimeter of the area. But no real drama.
And then something else that happened back home, your unit was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation by President George W. Bush. And from the way you describe it in the book, it seems like that kind of like went without being recognized back home at Denmark. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I'm just getting annoyed by thinking about it so many years after, but it's just so typical Danish. I mean, by coincidence, I was standing in a conference room in 2004, I think. I mean, 2 years after we came home from Afghanistan. I'm just looking at this photo of our of the boss, Lieutenant Colonel Frank Lisner, and he was shaking hand with President George Bush. And I went into the office to the guys in there and said, "What's going on there? What did he do over there? And why haven't we heard anything about that?" And it turned out, as you said, that Jaeger Corps and the Frogman Corps, by the way, was awarded this presidential unit citation. I didn't know what it was, so I had to Google, and it's quite an achievement. So I was proud to get that, to know that. I think when we got it, it wasn't awarded to any units. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think since the Vietnam War, I think it hadn't been awarded to that many units. So my boss, he then addressed the unit, and then he addressed the American embassy, and then 2 weeks later, the attaché from the American embassy, he came, and we then got this little
cool.
What do you call it?
A ribbon.
Yeah, ribbon. Yeah, but it's just, I mean, it's just typical being a small army, and why not celebrate? Because it's the first time we get this award. Why not celebrate? Why? I never get it, but it's just so typical Danish.
So tell us a little bit about your exit from the unit. Like, when did that day come that you decided you were ready to get out of the military?
Yeah, I was 41 years old, and I knew that they would put me in some section, and I was just pushing paper, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in the army in order to be being in a team, not doing preparation of orders, or what do you call it, and all this. I didn't want to do that. So I left the Jaeger Corps as 41 years old after 11 years of service. And that was I didn't mind, actually, but I just drove out of the main gate. I left 2 cases of beers to the squadron, and we just had a beer, and then I drove out with my dog through the main gate. And I don't think you do it the same way in the American Army. I think you have an exit which is more celebrated. Let me put it in that way. I don't think you just leave your unit.
Some do and some don't.
Yeah.
It really depends. I mean, there are unfortunately stories, a soldier even who loses his leg, and kind of they slide his discharge papers across the table like, see ya. But there are other times, I was very fortunate. The guys gave me a plaque and said thank you and all this stuff, and it was a very nice exit. Yes.
Okay. Well, it's not because I'm feeling sorry for myself, not at all. Why not?
Celebrate.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
It's cold
exactly. Yeah.
But they don't get it.
Is that sort of what led to you writing your book, Jaeger? Because the people of Denmark just don't really know what you guys do?
Yeah, sort of. A part of it was. Another part was that I really didn't know what to do. I was 41 years old, and I didn't have a clue what to do with my life. So why not maybe write a book? And I made a pitch, and I believed it could be a nice way to sort of work with these emotional dimension of the job. I think that could be helpful, and that was another part of the reason. So it was these 2 main reasons, yeah. And then I pitched for some publishing companies. I got 4 or 5 no's, and then I got a yes. And then I started writing the book in 2008. Yeah.
And tell us about the controversy when the book came out.
Yeah. Of course, I've cleared the book. I have some lawyers, 2 lawyers to read the book before we published. I wrote to the Jaeger Corps, listen, I'm ready with my book now. Do you want to read it? And it didn't manage to reply on that email. I got some of my teammates to read the book. So I was completely confident and sure that this book didn't breach my confidentiality, agreement. What's the word?
Yeah. Like a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
So, and then I just pushed the button, and it was printed, and by coincidence, it was discovered by a journalist who interviewed the the defense minister, and he called the Jaeger Corps, the military command, and said, "What this book coming from this Jaeger? Do you know about that?" And they didn't. So it was then it became a huge scandal because the military, they believed that I have breached my confidentiality agreement, and they wanted to put me away for 11 years or 12 years actually in prison. And it was a huge scandal in Denmark. So I just went under the radar for the next 12 months. During this period, I was suspended from work. I was interrogated by the lawyers from the army, and at the end, they came to the conclusion that they wouldn't do anything further with this book, and I was put back into service again, and doing the rest part of my service in the military outside the Jaeger Corps in another unit, so okay. National Guard unit. I was doing that. So huge scandal, but no, completely stupid. Instead of embracing the book and making some PR, but they choose to make this big scandal.
I was going to ask. I mean, did all the controversy actually help sell the book?
Yeah. I mean, in Denmark, if you sell 10,000 books in Denmark, it's a bestseller.
Yeah.
I think 7 days after my release, I had sold 30,000 books.
Wow.
And now it has sold totally, including the foreign market in Germany, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Bulgaria. It has sold, I think, 450,000 copies now.
Yeah, that's huge.
Amazing.
That's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
Lot of books in Sweden and Norway, but of course, obviously, most in Denmark. But it's a lot. So I didn't complain, but it wasn't my intention to make this controversy. It was not my intention at all. I just wanted to write a good story about being a soldier, but it didn't turn out that way, and I made some good money on that book. Yeah.
I'm biased, of course, as I said earlier on. I mean, I think it's a great book. It's called Jaeger at War with the Elite. You guys can find it now, obviously in Danish, also in English. I hope you guys will check it out. And after Jaeger came out, you wrote some novels too, right?
Yes, I've been writing 5 novels and 2 books. What do you call it? This motivational type of books.
Okay. Yeah, like leadership, inspiration, that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah. But 5 novels about my main character, Michael Plesner, and of course he's a ex-Jaeger, and they take place different places in Somalia. I went down 3 times to Somalia to make research in 2012 to interview this tribe. Which is in my second novel, which is called Black Dawn. They take place in Greenland. The third in this series is called Dead Man's Bay. It takes place in Greenland, in the capital Nuuk, and then on the Kola Peninsula, the Russian former submarine base, and just on the border in Finland, and then about human trafficking as well. So that's the subjects.
Are those books available in English?
No, I would like to. Yeah, I would like to, but it's difficult as a Dane. I mean, it's very difficult as a Dane because you have all your one yourself. You write. I know, Jack. So it's very difficult for a tiny nation. For me to penetrate the foreign market is very difficult. But obviously, I would like to.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'd love to see it too. I love to read them. And then what are some of you also got involved in a bunch of TV projects, right?
Yeah, it's a British format. It's called Corps, The Right Stuff, and it's just it's basically reality TV, but it's quite fun. And we have these 15 students, and in a period of 8 days, we make this condensated version of the selection course. and then 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 finish, and it's broadcasted on Danish television. It's good. It's good fun, and it makes me a little exposed, so I can do some more lectures and make some more money. So
That's cool.
That's okay.
How many seasons of the show have you done?
8.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
And I've participated in 6. I declined the last season because I want to. We couldn't agree on the contract. Yeah.
And you said there's something else that you're working on with Colombia?
Yeah, I just mentioned it because it might be interesting. But I mean, it's a Danish series, so I don't know whether it's interesting for you at all. But I just went to Colombia. I went to Colombia in 2022 for 1 month, and the mission was to show the cartels' dominance in Colombia in producing cocaine. There have never been produced so much cocaine globally as there is now, and there have never been consumed so much cocaine as there is now.
Wow.
So I was embedded with the Colombian special forces called what they called Comando Jungla.
Yeah, the Lanceros.
Yeah, pleasure to be with these guys, and I went into the jungle with them in the Blackhawks. And we identified cocaine labs and blew them up. And I was just with my camera crew, cameraman,
Cool.
and an instructor, and I was in the labs in the jungle for this period of time, and also lived with a cocaine farmer and his son for 4 days, and I saw how they took the leaves from the coca trees and how they blended them and how they made the coca pasta, and they smuggled the coca pasta out through the jungle to other transit points where the cartels traded this cocaine pasta to other laboratories who made the final cocaine as we know it, the white powder. And we just and what that was the laboratories we demolished. And also had the opportunity to interview some people from the biggest cartel in Colombia, called Clan del Golfo. A hitman from Clan del Golfo I interviewed. Crazy guy. His living was just, his work was get up in the morning and kill people, and he just got a hit list every day, and 2-3 people he went out just to bang, to eliminate them. 4 weeks because I did 4 weeks before I made my interview, he had to kill a pregnant woman. He didn't like that, but that was his life, and he was fucked because he couldn't just resign. He was fucked in the cartel. I mean, they just let their people, they don't let them go. So he was in there for life.
Wow.
So it's a crazy country.
And that's going to be on Danish television?
Yeah, it's in Danish television. Yeah. So
Anything else going on today, Thomas, that you want to tell people about? Anything going on either in your life or your career, or anything that you want folks to know?
Well, no, nothing of interest. I don't think so.
Okay.
No, it would be too boring to tell. My life is a little bit boring these days, so I hopefully I can find a way out. Yeah.
Where can people find you on the internet if they want to reach out to you?
ThomasRathsack@gmail.com.
Okay.
I have my website thomasrathsack.dk, DK obviously for Denmark, and then I'm on Instagram Thomas_Rathsack as well.
And we'll have links down in the description for podcast listeners or YouTube viewers. You guys will be able to find that stuff down there. Dee, do we have any questions for Thomas? No questions? Okay. So that's it, Thomas. We'll let you go. I know it's quite late where you are in your neck of the woods in Denmark. Really appreciate you, though, making the effort to dial in today and do this interview. Thank you.
Awesome. Pleasure for having me. Thank you very much.
All right. We will see all you guys next time. Hey guys, it's Jack. I just want to talk to you for a moment about how you can support the show if you've been watching it, enjoying it, but you'd like to get a little bit more involved and help us continue to do this. You can check out our Patreon. It is patreon.com/theteamhouse. And for $5 a month, you can get access to all of these episodes of The Team House ad-free. The same goes with our affiliated podcast, Eyes On, with Andy Milburn, Jason Lyons, Mick Mulroy. That one, you will also get all of those episodes ad-free. And you support the channel and the show, and we really appreciate it. The Patreon members are literally what has helped this company, this small business survive, especially during our early years. And you are what continues to help this thing going, even as we navigate the turbulent world of YouTube advertising. So we really appreciate all of you guys. There's going to be a link down in the description to that Patreon page. And there is also going to be a link to our new merch shop. So if you guys want to go and get some Team House merchandise, we got stickers and we also have patches. And I should mention, if you sign up for Patreon at $10 a month, we will mail you this patch as well. So we really appreciate that. But they're also for sale on the merch shop. And additionally, they got t-shirts up there, water bottles, a tote bag, coffee mugs, all that good stuff. So please go and check them out and support the show. We really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.